Yeah, thank you. So last Friday, the network was quite disrupted. We were unable to hold the class, and we had to shift it till Friday. So today, I believe the network will be quite okay for the next 45 minutes that we will be using. And today, we would be doing something quite different. We would like to look at how to answer questions, considering the fact that the assignment you were given some weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago. I am not quite delighted with some of the things I read as regards the 2 or 3 people that turned in the assignment. So today, I want us to consider the things that are expected of you, things that are expected of you as a student while attempting or answering literature questions. So I believe we can all see we would be making do with literature in English marking guide for 2019 examination. And if you take a very good look at your screen now, there are some things you would see that is displayed there. You can see the general comments, the weakness that is on average, the weaknesses among those who put in or those who wrote the literature examination then, and also the candidate strength on the average. So let's take a look at the general comments. It says that the standard of the paper compares favorably with those of the previous years. So the questions were set within the scope of the syllabus and were free of ambiguity. So when you take a look at, when you come across a literature question, for instance, the one you will be writing in 2-3 months from now, when you take a very good look at the questions you'll be asked, they will be within the ambience of the syllabus. So you will never come across a question. You will never come across a question that is not from the recommended text. You will never come across. You would never come across that. And so, like I said again last week, there are some things that naturally, even if you are preparing to write an exam 2 weeks or just a week before the actual exam date, there are some things that are expected of you as someone who has put in to write literature. And there are some questions that shouldn't meet you unprepared. There are some questions that shouldn't meet you unprepared. So taking a dimensional look at how to answer questions from my own perspective, what I expect you to do, which would be an assignment that I won't be marking. So what I expect you to do now is that all the recommended texts, I believe you all understand what I'm saying, all the recommended text that has been recommended for this syllabus for this year, at least 2021 to 2024, all the recommended texts, I would like you to be able to master the names of all the authors. All the names of all the authors. For instance, let's say drama, prose, and poetry. Now, when you look at your African drama, for instance, when you look at African drama, there are 2 recommended texts. We have A Lion and the Jewel. I want you to get the name of the playwright, and not just that. Alongside, I want you to do a little background information, a little background research. A little background research of who they are, and the year the book in particular was written. By knowing the year a book is written, you are getting additional information about, you might be getting additional information about the setting of a book. For instance, let's say The Lion and the Jewel, written by Wole Soyinka, was published in 1963. That is to tell you that if you take a very good look at that year and you try to compare it, when you try to look at that year in relation to the place, that is in relation to the physical setting of the book, which is Ilujinle, you would be able to relate. You would be able to relate that a book was set after the colonial era. So you will do the same, not just for that. The other African drama text too, you will do the same. Get the name of the playwright too. So I want you to do the same for all the recommended texts and all the poems. Now, it's not always about the length of what is written. Some students find it difficult to ascertain that, oh, okay, they ask these questions a lot. Okay, what if I am given a literature examination question, a essay, which we all know, irrespective of the genre, they all carry equal marks of 25 marks. Now, irrespective of this genre, they ask these questions all the time. That, oh, how many words? How many words at least should I what? How many words at least should I write? How many words at least should I write? 300 or 400? Well, more recently now, these examination bodies no longer give answer scripts. They no longer give answer scripts. Now, tell me, now what do? They allot a line in your question paper. They give spaces, limited spaces for you to answer your question. Now, there is this conflict. When some examiners mark, this is what they say. They will tell you that, oh, how will I give you a question that I would grade over 25, and you would write just a page or just 2 pages, or just 3 pages. Whereas we have some students who do battle with their what? Who do battle with themselves before they can even write a paragraph or 2. So now imagine, what are you going to score if all you can write is a paragraph or 2, and the allotted mark to a question is 25. Now, in the face of this, now when we have limited spaces, some students now find it difficult to express. They find it difficult to summarize their point. They have all the expressions they can make do with, but to summarize their point into 5, 6, 7 meaningful paragraphs that would fetch them good mark becomes a problem. Now, how do we cope with this? Now, one thing you might find interesting that differentiates literature in English from English language is that when examiners mark, they don't mark blunders in literature. We are not concerned about the grammaticality of your expressions, whether they are correct or not, whether you've made use of is where you're supposed to make use of was, or where you're supposed to make use of are, where you're supposed to make use of where. We are less concerned about that. In fact, we are less concerned about, as regards, some examiners are less concerned about spellings too. So it's not always about that. So if these reasons are not enough, if these reasons are not enough to make you fail or to make you perform woefully, then why do people still fail literature? Why do they find it difficult to pass literature? Now, I want you to take note of this. relax and take note of this. What you should know now is that no matter what the question is in literature, no matter what the question is in literature, irrespective of the genre, whether it's a question on a poem, or it's a question on a drama text, or it's a question on a novel, irrespective of all this, no matter what the question is, what we need is 3 points. What we need is what? 3 points. Minimum of 3 points. We need a minimum of 3 points. Comment on the character. Comment on the character of Park Osoko in the book Boys Are Mad Again. Comment on, now this is a question on characterization. What do we need exactly in this question? We want you to discuss. We want you to discuss or talk about Park Osoko, giving us 3 valuable points. If you are able to do this, then your problem would be quite minimal. As long as you are able to give us 3 solid points, as long as you are able to give us 3 solid points, then each point would fetch you 5 marks. So for the 3 points, that's 15 marks. So someone might actually be writing bad grammar, the grammar might be poor, but once the expressions are what? Once the expressions are correct, you will be able to garner a tangible points. You would be able to garner tangible points. Now, let me share this. Now, so what are the things that that we need? What are some of the things that we recognize as what? As candidates' weakness. Now, the first one is what? The inability to meet the demands of the questions. The inability. When you are given a question, on the average, you have to spend 30 to 40 minutes. You have to spend 30 to 40 minutes on a question. Now, it might interest you that before you even attempt to answer a literature question, it is expected of you to have an highlight. It is expected of you to have what? To have an highlight of the points that you will use. Don't turn yourself into a professional writer such that when you are given a question, you start answering the question right away. It is not expected of you to do so. In fact, you might spend out of the 30-35 minutes you've allotted to a question, you might spend half of that minute or more than half of the minute planning on how to structure your answers, how to organize your answers. By the time you've been able to identify the subheadings, the points that you want to itemize, once you've been able to itemize all these points, to write, to express your points into meaningful sentences will not be a problem. So inability to meet the demands of the question is one thing. Another is what? Shallow knowledge or understanding of what? Of set text. You see, there is no magic to this. This is also another common thing that leads to failure in literature in English. Some students do not read the recommended text. They don't read the recommended text, yet they want to pass. They want to pass. You see, left to me, it's not all examiners are not bad or wicked, but left to me, if I am to set a literature question, if I'm to set a literature question myself for you, and this is a question I developed myself, then for you to be able to answer those questions perfectly well, or to an extent, for you to be able to do well in those questions or answer them very well, then you unavoidably you must read the text. So there would be a very large difference. Someone who picked a text, someone who picked the text and read it is different from someone who picked who browsed or surfed the internet, or someone who read key points, someone who read interpretations from textbook. It is quite different. What you need to experience, there is this way you need to bond with the text you are reading. So by reading the actual text, there is this level of bonding that will that would come up. So it's someone who read a text, the way someone who read a text, it will be different from someone who did not, certainly. I believe you understand that. And besides that, someone who tried to read a text more than once, someone who tried to read a text more than once, someone who read it twice or 3 times or 4 times, the way they will answer, someone who read it 4 times will answer a question. The understanding someone who read a text 4 times will have will be quite different from someone who read it just once. So another thing is what? Wrong interpretations of the questions. When someone interprets a question wrongly, the person scores 0. This is not the marking guide. These are those general observations. I'm still going to share the marking guide with you next week. I'm still going to share the marking guide with you next week, the exact marking guide. I think I should use the most recent one, the one last year's marking guide. I think that's the one I should look for, since it's the one that marked the beginning of a new syllabus, 2021 to 2020 to 2024. So I think I will make use of that. All the previous ones I have are hold. The previous ones I have are hold. Aha. No, so wrong interpretations of questions is also another thing. You have options of 2, 3 questions. You have options of 2, 3 questions. So you have to look at the question deeply. Take a very close observation before attempting any. Before attempting any. Some have this problem of canceling and shading. They begin a question, they look at the question, they think it's something they can do proper justification to. They begin to attempt the question. They start right away without considering whether they have enough points to buttress their claims or to support their answers. So after writing like a paragraph or 2, what do? They shade, they cancel. They pick another question again. They started upon writing a paragraph or 2 again, they shade, they cancel, such that by the time by the time they are expected to submit, they wouldn't have even finished any. Then we also have violation of rubrics. We have violation of rubrics. There are some basics that one should know. Let's assume I've given you a question. Let's assume I've given you a question on a poem. Now, for you to answer the question, then you begin to tell me that the playwright, I believe you understand. You are answering the question. You said, I've given you a question on a poem. Then you say the novelist. Does a novelist write poems, or does a poet write drama? I've given you a question on The Lion and the Jewel, then you are telling me the poet. Or you take the questions to a wrong dimension totally. You take the question to a wrong dimension totally. You begin to what? You begin to interchange wrongly. You begin to interchange wrongly. So it's more of someone who does not have a what? A stronger mindset or an established framework about the recommended text. So the person is just dabbling from one thing to another, or let me say the person is gambling. I think that's quite better. So little knowledge or no knowledge of literary appreciation. You see, when you are asked to literary appreciation comes naturally. Literary appreciation comes naturally. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Literary appreciation. Okay. So literary appreciation comes naturally. You have to bear in mind that any question you are answering in literature, the ideas must flow from within. So some people, this is what they do. They don't read. They intend to cheat. And we know some of their plans. Some, they would say, maybe there are 10 literature students in a school. Then they will say, okay, you alone, read Lion and the Jewel of all the recommended texts. Okay, I would read this, you read that. And when they get into the exam, the person who read Lion and the Jewel will be the one to give the whole center, the whole examination center, all the candidates there. It will be the one to supply them ideas, or at times, in fact, answers. They copy the same thing and write the same thing. It will be the one to give them the answers of, oh, this is what is expected to do. When you are appreciating a literature text question, we need three things. We need your own, we need relevant facts. We need relevant facts from the text. It is important that we get relevant facts from the text. Evidence. When you say, oh, it pays to be diligent at work. When you say something like that, for instance, now you go back to the text to give us an instance, making use of a character or characters. That is when you say, as evident in the play, as it is seen in the play, the character portrays or shows, displays that. You give your point, you relate it to a character in the poem. So we want evidence from the poem. We want evidence from the text. Sorry, we want evidence from the text, either a poem, no matter whichever way it is, whether it's from a poem or a drama or a prose. We want evidence from the question. Now, more importantly, we want your own voice too. We want your own voice too. Fine. In Lion and the Jewel, we have some characters that forms that we have three major characters there. We have three major characters there. Fine. We have other minor characters that did not even speak, like maybe the wrestler, the ballet's favorite wife, CD, the first dancer, second dancer, and the likes. We have all these, but the major characters there. We want you, while answering the question, we want your own voice to what? To supersede theirs. We want your own voice to supersede theirs. We want your own voice to come out too. Besides that which has been said or which has been reported from the book, what do you have to say as regards these two? As regards the topic at hand too? What do you have to say to present your own voice too? Now, when you present your own voice, you are not criticizing. Don't turn yourself into a critic. And don't turn yourself into someone who is religious. Don't bring in religious beliefs, because your own opinion is not as if you are trying to sell your own opinion. So when you give a view, you give a general view. I hope you're getting this. You give a general view. You don't present it as if, oh, I don't believe in God, or you don't present it as if I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian. You try to avoid anything that will bring your religion into what? Into limelight. Mm? Mm? So after, when your voice is also heard, when you give credibility to your voice, the last thing is that you must be able to relate it to what? You must be able to relate it to things around us. We need societal realities. We need societal realities. We need societal circumstances. We need evidences from everyday things around us. Mm? You are talking about corruption. Let's assume that corruption is a main theme that is discussed in a particular text. Let's assume it's a poem. Now, how do you relate this text, this corruption? How do you relate it to happenings around us too? You should be able to let us know that, for instance, you might be specific. For instance, in a country like Nigeria, cases of what? Cases of corruption had made the country to what? To continue to what? Decline. Eh? You bring in evidences. Eh? Cases of people who are what? Who are undergoing corruption trials. Cases of people who are undergoing corruption trials. Cases of people who are, I believe you understand this. By doing this, it shows what we intend to achieve in literature. What we intend to achieve comes to fruition, because not just that you understand the question, or not just that you've read the text, you are able to link, you are able to associate the message which the writer, and you are able to associate, you are able to link the message the writer is trying to what? The message the writer is trying to link with things that is happening around you. That means the writer had passed a message. The writer has not written in a vacuum, and you as a reader did not understand the message in a vacuum. So illegible handwriting, some people have the point. So if you have a bad handwriting, I think this is clear for, this is straightforward. Make sure that your handwriting is what? Is legible. And writing of irrelevancies. Irrelevancies would come up when you do fail to plan your writing. Some people turn themselves into professionals. They turn themselves into professionals. They read the question and they start writing immediately. It's not as if you can't do this, but there are some there are some levels of practice. There are some levels of practice before you can have this expertise. Before you can have this expertise. And besides, I think it is easier said than done. I don't think I will be attempting a literature question, a text that I have read and I have limited time, and I won't ensure that I have an outline. I would outline the point in summarily at the corner on my question paper. At the corner on my question paper with my pen. I will encode it, I'll write it down. I'll write it down. Then before I turn it into an essay. So essay literature questions are essay questions. So when you are answering literature questions, another thing you should know, you don't begin to itemize. You don't begin to list. It is not biology, it is not chemistry, it is not mathematics. We write it in essay format, the way we write essays. The way we write descriptive essays, the way we write expository essays. Because in descriptive, the way we write, let me say, narrative and expository essays, because even in descriptive essays at times, we might need to itemize. So we write it in paragraphs, in meaningful paragraphs. Inability to express answers in good English shouldn't be a problem. What we need is to understand your is to understand your point. Is to understand your point. Now, moving forward, the last thing we shall be considering today. Is suggested remedies. So what are the 5 suggested remedies that are here? Candidates should buy and read the set text before examination. So there is no shortcut to success as regards this. There is no shortcut to what? There is no shortcut to success. Candidates should not depend on key points and summary notes alone. What you are reading in key points and summaries are interpretations of what? Interpretations of a few people. And there are multiple interpretations to literature text. So other thing is what? Candidates should always read instructions before they start answering questions. Then competent teachers should be employed to teach literature, and teachers should should attend workshops and seminars occasionally to familiarize themselves with the demands of the subject. Now, I would have loved to share one more thing, but this is 3:37 already. So, is there any question? If there is anyone that would ask me a question now while we're still recording, I would like to entertain questions. Or better still, if you would be watching this via the YouTube channel later, I would appreciate you send your questions through Ms. Aisha, the coordinator. You can forward questions that you have, anything that seems complicated or anything that you demand an answer about, anything you demand an answer for as regards literature in English. You can always send your questions through any of the coordinators to me, or since there is no one asking a question now, before we round up, let's quickly take a look at our question. We'll do more of this next week by the grace of by the grace of God. Let's take a look at a question and let's see. Now take a look at this question from Faceless. It's from one of the old texts, the last syllabus. It says, explain the relationship between the street child and the title of the novel. Explain the relationship between the street child and the title of the what? The title of the novel. Now, what do we want from you? So it's a common question. Anyone who had read Faceless by Amadako would know that, and anyone who has read this would know that it's about street children who are abandoned by relatives, by parents, as a result of poverty, as a result of their own personal irresponsibility, how they are being left alone to survive on the street. That's what it is. So many children are on the street in Ghana. There, it's a common thing in Africa and some parts of South America and Asia. So child trafficking even abounds in most of these places. Children are taken around to serve as maids and as this. Now, you will know that Faceless, what led to the action? What led to the action or to the conflict of ideas in Faceless is the case of a woman who had been married twice and now had divorced the second husband, is with another man, but she had 2 children whom she had abandoned, just like their father too. She had left them alone to survive on the street alone. She left them to survive on the street alone. Now, Fofo is Baby T's sister, and the elder sister has been murdered. So it's as a result of his murder, it's as a result of this murder. So it's some investigations, which was linked with ritual killings. It was linked to ritual killings, and investigations are being carried out by Mute, a non-governmental organization headed by Cabria and our team. They are trying to unveil the true circumstances behind our death. Now, this question has said that explain the relationship between street child and the title of the novel. Now, the point that should be well developed. Tell us what a street child is. Definition of the street child as minors living on the street and fending for themselves. It is impossible you make us understand who is a street child. Then the street child takes the characteristics of the street, losing his or her identity, faceless. By the time they get to the street, they pick a new name. They might say, okay, call me Mary Jane or Mary Kay, or they might pick something different, such that they won't be identified. There is this particular line from an Indian film I watched very long ago, where a character said, how can we go missing when we do not even exist? I want you to ponder on that. It's the person who had said this is she has also been trafficked from a rural area in India, and she has been brought to, I think, New Delhi or Mumbai to work as a prostitute. So their boss is only concerned about them making money every day. So even if when they return or fail to return, there is no one to look for them. So how can we go missing when we do not even exist? They are faceless. So tell us the reasons why a child leaves home to become entrapped by what? In the street. That is, you are telling us the relationship between a street child and the title of the novel. What's the title of the novel? Faceless. So you are trying to show a relationship between street child and novel. Now, also the predicament of the street child, like molestation, rape, bullying, and thuggery. Then facelessness of the street child. By the time you are able to touch all this, believe me, you are better off, and you would be able to score so maybe 15 over 25, 18 over 25, or 16. If you're able to touch all this. So we want 3 solid points. So on this note, this is where we would be ending the class today. Please do well to send in questions. Do well to send in questions that you want to ask about how literature in English questions are to be answered. Do well to send them through any of the coordinators to me, and I'll also do well to give you proper response. Proper response, whether it would be via a text, via email, or whatever it is, or preferably via audio message, whichever case it is. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining the class today. Thank you very much. That's the end of the class.